image as your host. Well, thanks for joining us here on Living Right with Dr. Ray. I'm Dr. Ray Garendi. We're going to try to help you live right. I'm the guy that's the Dr. Ray. You are my guests, and delighted to have you. What a show. It's jammed today. We got Father Larry Richards. He's going to tell you, what is true freedom? Is true freedom to do whatever you want? Or is it the liberty to do good? Our real child psychologist is Rafe, a young boy. He has some definitive ideas about how to raise his family. Also, Nikaeda Griffie. She is from a large Midwestern adoption agency. She's going to talk about adoption. Why are you called? How do you know? And how much does it cost? Parent comparing. Those of you who want to raise a 1 in 100 child, you're going to have to be a 1 in 100 parent. You can't be like 99% of parents and raise the kind of child you wish to raise. Little problem with my hearing. It should clear up pretty much by the end of the program. Driving here today, I brought my 12-year-old daughter and her friend. My hearing was pretty good until they got into the car in the back seat. And then and they got louder and louder, and I had the windows rolled up. I didn't want the people on the interstate to hear it. And troopers were coming up behind me with their lights on going. In marriage counseling, one of the struggles between husbands and wives is that we're different. We are different. Despite what Time magazine said a long time ago, men and women are different, like it was a revelation. We are different. We're different verbally. We don't communicate quite as well if we're males as women do. Women are more in touch. Women kind of know these things. One time my wife was driving 5 of our girls. I have 5 boys and 5 girls. Driving 5 of our girls in the van somewhere. I had the boys with me in my vehicle. She pulled up next to me at the light, looked down at my vehicle, and did this. The extent of the conversation in my car took place about 14, 15 miles down the interstate when my one son said, "Hey, Dad, listen to this." And then he burped the alphabet up to L. Which is impressive, because all I could ever do was go up to about G. You know. Did you ever listen to a little girl play by herself if she doesn't know you're there? Jessica, why don't you come over about noonish, okay? Bring the baby Isaiah. Oh, I love that name. Yes, I memorized the baby name book, all 30,000 names. Well, it took me an hour. Okay, we'll go down to the park. The leaves are so cinnamony this time of year, don't you think so? The autumnal ambiance with the puce, the magenta. Those are colors that chromatically imbue my spirit. Did you ever listen to a little boy play by himself if he doesn't know you're there? Oh! Guttural, primordial, bowel-like effluences. I like to give my kids essays. Essays for misbehavior. I will give my son an essay. He'll write, "Dear Mom and Dad, I am sorry that I told Sarah to get out of my room in a mean way to get out of my room. And I know that you do not like it, and God does not like it, and Mary does not like it, and St. James does not like it, and St. John does not like it, and Aunt Carla does not like it." He's 17. I'll give my daughter the same essay. "Dearest Mother and Father, While I recognize that some people believe I might have behaved somewhat inappropriately, I fail to understand how you could make such a judgment, given that you were nowhere near what happened when the episode unfolded. Furthermore, I fail to understand why Sarah seems to be getting away with everything around. She's ripping us up in the essay. She's 9. When I was in graduate school, we had these techniques that we were taught, techniques to make kids behave, make them listen. We learned sticker systems. You know how you make sticker systems? You put them up on a refrigerator, and is a blue banana face better than a smiling frown hippopotamus face? And we learned how to empathically share, to use iMessages. I'm very frustrated when you don't go to bed on time, rather than you messages. You frustrate me when you don't go to bed on time. We learned how to use natural consequences and logical consequences, so I tried all this stuff when I got out of school. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. But I ran across a technique that I think, for those of you who are grandparents, or those of you who have preschool children, is pretty close to foolproof. It's as good as any that I have ever seen. And to demonstrate this particular technique, I'm going to call up a friend of mine who happens to be sitting in the audience, Ron. Ron, would you please come up here to demonstrate the technique? Now, bedtime bad times are a real problem with preschoolers. Preschoolers don't listen. They don't want to go to bed. Parents nag, remind, re-remind, negotiate, threaten. Now, you've developed a technique. I understand this. You say works?
Ray, go back to when we were kids.
Yeah.
Our parents sometimes used violent or firm methods.
Yeah.
This method is something that is foolproof.
It's kind?
It's kind. Kids have to be coddled.
Yes.
Kids have to be entertained nowadays.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true. You need to entertain. You're going to set up a win-win scenario?
So the method I found is this.
All right, I'm not going to go to bed.
You're not going to go to bed.
And I'm 4 years old, and you're going to tell me, and you say you're only going to have to say it once?
Only once.
I don't believe that.
I said go to bed right now.
Right now?
That's what I said. Right now.
And it works every time.
I got to work on it. All right, wait, one more time. It's the makeup. The makeup's doing it. Listen, you got to be creative. Now, speaking of creative, people have creative questions. The best stuff I get comes from grown-ups off the cuff, whether it be on the radio show, whether it be in my own family, whether it be at parties. You don't ever go up to somebody at a party and they ask you, what do you do for a living? You're what? I'm not here, honey. You're a psychologist. And then they say, they always, obligatory stepping back. Are you analyzing me? And I usually ask, I find that interesting that you would ask that question. What do you got for me in the way of questions? I love questions. Make them true false. I'm better at those. I'll get the mic here. Yes, ma'am. Your name, please.
Diane.
Hi, Diane.
Hi. I work at a pregnancy help center, and knowing that you have adopted children, I was wondering if you had some insight to offer as to how to talk to a young teenage girl with an unplanned pregnancy about considering adoption for her child.
Two mindsets going on out there. One is, if I adopt my child to someone, I am abandoning them. I am rejecting them. First thing I go at is I would ask the young lady, how do you see adoption? Okay, if she tells you, well, I feel like it's irresponsible because I'm not raising my child, or I feel like my child someday at age 26 will say, why didn't you keep me? So you find out what their nervousness, what their misconceptions about adoption are. Then the second thing you do is you reinforce. How important is it, do you think, for a child to have a mother and a father who loves them? Many of these young girls have boyfriends who have abandoned them. They're gone. They're not around. And even if the relationship is still semi-intact, the girl has doubts. The girl has doubts whether this guy's going to be responsible, and oftentimes she doesn't even know exactly where or who the father is. So I would focus on the incredible act of love that is to give a child a family. One time my son Peter asked me, "Dad, was I in Mommy's belly?" "No, Petey, you were in another lady's belly." "Why didn't she keep me?" He was 5 years old. I said, "Petey, she knew you needed a mommy and a daddy. And God knew I needed a Petey." And you know, he was a little boy, and that was a good enough answer for him. If it were my daughter, well, okay, but how do you define love? In love in a situation like... Thank you, Diane. All right, what else we got? You know, you guys are like auctioneers. Nobody really raises their hands. They go, you know, and you just bought a $500,000 Rembrandt. I always go to auctions. I'm afraid to go to auctions because I don't want to move. I figure I'll buy something. You know, I go, all right, that's $500,000 right there.
Thank you, Dr. Ray.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. I was wondering how you entered into the career that you're in now as considered pursuing the field of psychology. And second part to the question, I wondered if more Catholics practice the sacrament of confession, that if the amount of the need for psychologists would go down.
Crowd's turning on me. How did I enter the field of psychology? Very simple answer to that. I flunked out of everything else. I was in engineering at a technical school called Case Institute of Technology in Cleveland. I could not keep the train on the track that first year. And I remember my college prof, I think he knew I wasn't part of engineering when I did this the first couple days of class. He said, "All of you in engineering, any questions?" I said, "Yes. Do those trains go as fast up close as when you're standing back?" So I think he realized I wasn't totally suited for engineering. It was an accident. I actually changed majors 3 times. My senior year, I was into psychology preparing for a law degree. I got my master's, and I said, "This is pretty neat stuff. Let's see how far I can go with it." That's about as simple as it was. Would we need less shrinks if we had more confession? I think that's a safe statement. Especially for a lot of folks. You see, most of what people come to a therapist for, problems in living. They're not pathological. There's nothing wrong with these folks. This is stuff they are struggling with as humans. And for many of us, whether we label it so or not, it is sinful conduct in their lives that's creating this kind of tragedy or crisis or hurt or struggle. One more. Well, you look excited. You just bought the Rembrandt.
Dr. Ray, I'm a teacher, and I have seen a huge increase of ADHD in our children and also a lot of television watching. What would you recommend to parents about early television watching for children?
Early television watching, like 4 in the afternoon? 6 o'clock? Early, like little kid early. The question was once asked in a workshop, is ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, caused by watching TV or caused by all the stimulation that is pounding our children? Technically, the answer is no. All right, ADHD is a developmental disorder, neurologically speaking. Okay, it's the tail end of the temperamental continuum. However, this is not to say, and there's research coming out to indicate this, this is not to say that what we can do is train and teach children to want. Let's go. Move, 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 move. You've been standing in one place for 4 seconds. That's enough, that's enough, that's enough. Let's go. Come on. We can do that. And there are studies out that say the more television you watch, the less you are attracted to, let us say, the things of sustenance, time, perseverance, focus. So yeah, there is a link there. Speaking of links, I like to ponder who I'm going to use here. A young man trying to hide, like in government class when you didn't know the answer and you knew the prof was going to call on you and you just kind of shrunk further into your seat. That's what he was doing. Your name, sir?
Stephen.
Hi, Stephen. Come on up here.
All right.
Stephen, how old are you?
22.
22. So you are to the point where Mark Twain said you realize that your father's getting smarter.
Some days.
All right. Stephen, I don't want you to go to a concert. You're 15, you absolutely want to go. And your main argument is, of course, I am completely out of touch with the parenting mainstream. Every single other parent would not do what I'm doing. In the old days, we knew that was bunk because there were a lot of parents who did agree the kid just didn't cite him. Now, we're not so sure it's bunk. Stephen, I thought about it. I talked to your mom. First of all, I don't know a couple of those kids. Second of all, a concert. You know, I went to some concerts when I was a kid, and this isn't exactly church. All right, Stephen, you're 15 years old. You can stay home and play Sudoku.
Well, look. Some of my friends, you've met their parents. You know a good chunk of them. They're good kids. They're not, their parents. You know, they stopped sacrificing animals like 5 years ago. Okay.
Something tells me I couldn't mess with this kid. I'm already outclassed. Look, I know some of their parents, but I don't know them like I want to know them. You are different. You are different than those. They're being raised differently, Stephen, than you are.
Well, it's nice to have a difference of opinions, you know? You can't just you always have to look at things from the other point of view. A good argument is formed from looking at your side and the other side.
Are you saying that your father is a Neanderthal?
Never.
A Cro-Magnon out of touch dude?
No.
A throwback?
No, of course not.
What if I'm the only parent? As you say, do you have any proof that I'm the only parent that thinks this? Did you take a poll?
Yes, actually I did. I have some paperwork up in my room. I have it all written out.
Now you see, I'm not getting anywhere with this kid. And his main argument is, how can all those people be wrong and you be right? Now, I will help you, since I am a highly trained professional. I will give you a sophisticated answer to his question. You ask me, Stephen, how can all those people be wrong, Dad, and you be right? Go ahead.
How can all those people be wrong and you be right?
They are, and I am. What are you going to say? Thanks, buddy. Thank you. Doesn't sit well, does it? You just kind of shut him off. But what are you going to do? You saw I could have talked forever. And if you go by the rationale of all those people, I'm done. Because he's right. Oftentimes, it is all those people. And if you gauge your parenting by all those people, you will raise your kids like all those people raise their kids. And I have one question for you. Is that what you want to do? If it's not, then you're going to have to be comfortable and strong enough to say, they are and I am. You know, my dad used to do this. If Marlon jumps in the lake, are you going to jump in the lake too? You ever notice a guy like Stephen? He would never parent compare with somebody whose parent makes them work all afternoon on Saturdays. John's dad makes him rake leaves all day Saturday. Where I don't, I get to sleep in till 11 o'clock. I can't believe you should be more like John's dad. Madge's mother gives her $52 a week for taking the trash down once every 3 weeks. Why can't I have more like that? Yeah. So, all righty. When we come back, have to tell you, there's more stuff, absolutely more stuff coming. First thing we're going to do is we are going to talk about Catechism Wisdom with Father Larry Richards. How do you act free? By doing good, the choice to do right. We have Dr. Rafe, a young man who's basically going to instruct you, in case you missed it, on how to do it right from the child's eyes. And you want to know something else? Does spanking make kids aggressive? You swat a bottom? Are you raising an outside linebacker who just wants to smash people? And she's 7. Stay with us when we come back. More Living Right with Dr. Ray. Thank you.
A family that when you go off to college, you can come home to on the holidays. A family that when you graduate from college and don't have a job right away, you have some place to live.
When you come to know Christ and you come to know His power and His love, now you know freedom.
Well, this is a great part for me because I get a chance to learn an awful lot with some of the great guests that we bring in. I learn more here than I do watching Jeopardy. It's true. You ever watch Jeopardy? You just want to go, how do you know that? Do you have a job? With me today on Living Right with Dr. Ray, Nikaeda Griffie. Hi, Nikaeda.
Hi, Dr. Ray.
Nikaeda is an adoption supervisor at a large Midwest agency. Adoption is in the middle of my heart, Nikaeda.
Mine also.
I have 10 adopted children, so I'm excited about that. Now, I got so many questions.
Okay.
All right. You deal with the foster parents to adopt, or you also will deal with recruiting adoptive parents who have never fostered?
We deal with both. I specifically work with the waiting children. So when I'm recruiting or looking for parents, I'm looking for adoptive parents because I'm working with kids that are in permanent custody.
How do you recruit adoptive parents?
Well, we do a lot to recruit adoptive parents. We do shows like this. We do a lot of recruitment in the community. We do a lot with churches. A church audience is a good captive audience for foster and adoptive recruitment because those are kind-hearted people with a mission mind. And I view these waiting kids as kids that need something, and those are the type of people that usually step forward.
Give me 2 profiles. First of all, I want the profile of the typical adoptive parent, age, marital status, religion, and then I want the typical profile of a waiting child.
Okay, well, typical adoptive parents, we don't really have typical adoptive parents because we found that atypical people make the best adoptive parents. We have married adoptive parents. We have single people that become adoptive parents. You have to be 18 to adopt. You can own or rent your home. You don't have to be rich. A lot of people think you need a big, spacious house with a bunch of bedrooms.
So you won't stop me if I have, okay, say I have 10 children, and I come to you, Nikaeda, and I say, we'd love to adopt again, and we're open to any child up to age 10. You come to my house, and you look, and you say, well, you got 4 bedrooms, 2 of the children are sleeping outside in a tent. Would you, I had an adoption worker. Well, this was back when we only had 3 children. And she said, how many bedrooms do you have? And I said, we have 4. But we have room for more bedrooms. And I could tell that she was thinking 1 bedroom per kid. You're not.
No. Each child has to have their own bed. So, and you can put up to 2 bunk beds in a room. You can 4 kids in a room.
Okay. So that's not a problem.
Not a problem.
All right.
Not a
Now
problem.
the kids, waiting kids.
Waiting kids.
How long they've been waiting on average?
Unfortunately, most of our kids have been waiting probably about 3 years.
Since they've been placed?
Since they've come into foster care and placed in our permanent custody, a lot of our kids have been waiting probably about 3 years average.
10, 11, 12-year-olds, 13, 14?
The majority of our waiting kids are 12 and up. We call school age. We have a lot of teens waiting to be adopted.
What happens with the 2 and 3-year-olds?
The 2 and 3-year-olds? We don't have 2 and 3-year-olds.
They're just adopted like that, right?
Right.
They typically either relatives will take them in, or if they're fostered, the foster parents.
The foster parents will adopt them. I mean, and what people have to realize is, it's a public agency. So when we remove children from their homes, our goal is to reunify them with their families. So if we don't reunify them with their families, you're right. It's either a family member or a foster parent that steps in and makes a permanent plan for them.
You get custody after so long, right? You have the plan.
Right.
The family doesn't follow through. At some point, you get permanent custody.
Right.
Why would not a foster parent, say you place a 9-year-old with me. Well, that 9-year-old's been with me for 3.5 years. What are some of the reasons why the foster parent would say, I'm still open to the child to be adopted into another family?
Because I think with our foster families, we license families either as foster only or foster to adopt. And with our foster families, they go in with the mindset that these children are going to return home. And fostering is very difficult work. When you have a child in your home for 2-3 years and you're working with family, they become a part of your family. But when you're working with a social worker who's saying, we're still visiting with the parents, we still want this child to be able to go home. So,
So the question that the people have asked me is they'll say, well, if a kid is in long-term foster care, and the foster parents have made it clear, well, I will definitely raise a child till the age of majority. How is that different than still at age 14 you're looking for a quote-unquote permanent family? Wouldn't you say he's already got a permanent family? Or is there a certain unsettledness to that whole thing?
It's very unsettling when families don't commit to kids. If you're willing to let a child stay with you till whenever, then you should be willing to make the legal commitment. And if you don't, then as an agency, it's our job to look for legal parents for that child. Because a lot of times with foster parents that say they can stay until forever, forever is until they turn 18 and the board check stops coming, and they move them out and move in another child. So we want people to make permanent legal commitments to children through adoption.
A family forever.
Correct.
Not a family to age 18.
Right, not a family until you graduate from high school and the agency emancipates you, but a family that when you go off to college, you can come home to on the holidays, a family that when you graduate from college and don't have a job right away, you have some place to live.
I'm an adoptive parent, I come to you, and I'm wanting to adopt, but I'm nervous. I'm skittish, I'm scared. What are the most common reluctancies, questions you get?
Well, a lot of times, because most of our waiting children are 12 and older, people come in that want to foster, usually come in thinking they're going to foster or adopt a younger child. And a lot of families are scared of teenagers.
Heck, I'm scared of mine, and they've been living with me since the beginning.
Right, but so we try and do a lot of recruitment events. We do adoption mixers, which is where families can come in and interact with our waiting kids to make them less scary. We do videos of our children so that people can see them in their natural elements. I just think there's a lot of stereotypes. The media definitely doesn't help the way it portrays teenagers.
And these kids are going to take a hatchet to the family dog or something.
Right, right. And and a big misconception is that these kids don't want to be adopted and they can't adapt to families and they can't change, and that's just not true.
Do you don't, typically when a child is placed in foster care to be adopted, the kid's 9, 10, 11, 12, that's usually when it happens?
Yeah. I mean, the age, we have kids coming in of all different, age ranges, but yeah, we do get a lot of, most of them are usually school age, so I would say 12 and up.
Tell our viewing audience, and this is one I get all the time from folks, we would love to adopt, we just don't have the money. We can't put out $38,000 to adopt. Tell our viewing audience, if they come to an agency like yours, what do they pay to adopt?
When you come to our agency to adopt, there's no fee to become a licensed foster adoptive parent. Zero. When you get to the part where you're actually going to court, there is a court cost to adopt a child, but it's a reimbursable fee, and right now it's $149, but it changes, every year or every couple of years.
So basic, and they're going to get that back tax-wise.
And you will get it, well, you get it, it's part of your non-recurring adoption expenses, which are refunded after. It's not even taxes. It's you submit your receipt to the agency, and they send you a check for your court costs after the fact.
$149.
And whatever it is, $22.50, I believe, for a birth certificate.
That's it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. You're pulling out all these hidden costs. You nickel and diamond me here. Could get up to $200.
Could be. If you adopt a sibling group, it might raise you $100.
Oh, so. Do you have sibling groups?
Oh my gosh,
many,
yes, many. And that's a big push. Is we need foster and adoptive families that can keep siblings together in care.
What's the largest sibling group you have right now?
Right now, in permanent custody, we have a sibling group of 4.
4. Now, do you have a better chance to get younger kids if you have a sibling group? The oldest one might be 12. The youngest is 4.
A lot of our younger children do tend to be a part of a sibling group, or some of the older or the younger children that are in permanent custody have pretty significant special needs, so that's why they're waiting.
How long have you been doing this?
I have been doing this for 10 years.
10 years. Did you think you were going to do this? I mean, you look awful young. You think you were going to do this out of college?
Yes, I did.
That was your hope, your dream, your love?
I wanted to be I wanted to work in adoptions, yeah. So I'm very fortunate to do what I like to do.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Nikaeda Griffie, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. And she could get a percentage credit. Our Lord says, take care of the widows and the orphans in their distress. All right, this is kind of like Amway. She gets a percent. She helps take care of the kids. Now, I don't know what, depending on the percent, what you get, but if you get enough kids, that's a pretty good percentage.
Hey. Bring it on. We're a social worker. We don't make a lot. So.
Saintly credit. Thank you, Nikaeda.
Thank you.
Art Linkletter perfected the child interview, but he was genteel. He was cautious. He asked benign questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? What would happen if you had a psychologist talk to a real child psychologist to get the nitty-gritty psychological answers? Let's hear from Rafe. Who's stricter, mom or dad?
Mom.
Mom is stricter. So if you want something, who do you go to first?
I'd probably say Dad.
How much of the time does he say yes and mom says no? Does he say yes most of the time? When you say, hey, Dad, can I? He'll say yes, or he'll say, I don't care, ask your mom?
Yeah, usually I don't care, ask your mom.
I don't care, ask your mom.
Or leave me alone, ask your mom.
Leave me alone, ask your mom. She's the boss. You go to your mom and you say, Mom, I'm 8 years old. I think I've pretty much learned whatever you're trying to teach me. I don't think you need to discipline me anymore. I think that I've got it. So, Mom, from now on, you rest up. No. You discipline my little brother because he needs it. I don't. What would happen if you went and told her that?
I'd probably get in a lot of trouble.
You get in trouble? Why? No! You're telling her you're going to be good. How could you get in trouble for telling her you're going to be good?
Oh, because she knows I probably won't.
The shrinks have pontificated for a long time about the advantages of two parents. If you ask a kid, what are the biggest advantages of having two parents? Most of them will say, well, if one says no, I can ask the other. They cut right down to the core of it. We dads do defer a lot, don't we? Go ask your mom. Or I usually say, what did your mother say? Because I know if they mess up, I can say, honey, you told him he could. Not my fault. Let's hear what the big people have to say. This is from Kay in Arkansas. Dr. Ray, when I don't get immediate compliance from one of my kids, I call out to Dad for backup. I feel like a whiny little kid whose sibling is not playing fair. Does this need to change? Clients will come into my office and they'll say, one of us has great authority, the other does not. The one with the better authority often says, she needs to develop her own authority. I can't go in there and rescue her every time. Or, is more commonly happening these days, it's the woman who has the authority and the guy is the one she's dragging along uphill. One of the great advantages of having two parents in the same home is that you link. You are like this. Mom is rattled, Dad is rattled. Dad is rattled, Mom is rattled. I tell my clients there is absolutely nothing wrong, psychologically immature, with being the stronger parent if that is your strength. If you are more confident, more authoritative, less wordy, the kids listen more, good. That takes a lot of load off of your spouse. One time one of my sons was about 16, 17. I was away from home for about 6 days. My wife told him to go to bed. He looked at her, his eyes flickered. She read them. He was basically saying, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you. Dad's not here. You can't really make me go to bed. And she said, she thought at that time, Ray, I appreciated you being always, at least in the background, even if you're not there for that day, because I looked at his eyes and his attitude was, what can you do about it alone? Fascinating study. They took elephants, pulled the male bulls out of the herd, left the herd in charge of the matriarchs. Within a short period of time, the adolescent elephants started becoming terrorists. They knocked over the rhinos just for fun. They had to reintroduce the bulls back into the herd to control the young adolescent males. There is absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever with the strength of one parent supplying strength for the other. As Mom said, she's not whiny. Well, unless she'd say, come on, get in here. I'm doing this by myself. Catechism Wisdom coming up on Living Right with Dr. Ray. Father Larry is going to tell you how you can be free by doing good. Stay there.
When you listen to God, He says, I've come to set you free. Would you trust me? The world says, don't trust God, you trust us.
Some parents spank well, some parents don't, like all discipline. But there is no research anywhere that says spanking done by loving parents in a loving home causes all those problems. Who has true wisdom about living right? The Catholic Church, as founded by Jesus Christ some 2,000 years ago, been around a while. Or modern secular ideas, ever shifting, ever changing. Catechism of the Catholic Church. A lot of wisdom in there for living right. I'm Dr. Ray, as always on Catechism Wisdom, my friend, Father Larry Richards, pastor of St. Joseph's Church, Bread of Life Community in Erie, Pennsylvania, as well as a very sought-after speaker for missions and parishes and conferences around the country, and, might I add, author of a great selling book, Be a Man.
Be a Man. Estovere.
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 Father Larry, let me read you what the Catechism of the Catholic Church says in section 1733.
1733.
Approximately the year you were born. The more one does what is good, the freer one becomes. There is no true freedom except in the service of what is good and just. The choice to do evil is an abuse of freedom and leads to the slavery of sin. Excuse me, But the Catholic Church puts restrictions on people. It actually constricts freedom. How can they say, is this some kind of spin? How can they say to do good, avoid evil, is true freedom?
Exactly. Jesus, the one that virginally said, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Because, again, dealing with kids all these years, once a person gives in this, and I say, try to stop. Go ahead, try. And whatever their sin happens to be, whether it's like a woman or a man who gossips a lot, I say, okay, why don't you try to stop? Or judges a lot. Why don't you try to stop?
I want.
Exactly. You become a slave to it. It takes you under. It's like in the beginning when someone starts smoking a cigarette and go, oh, this is great, I could stop any time. And then you become addicted, and then it kills you. It's the same thing with all the realities that enslave us. That when we come to, remember Jesus says, if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. And again, the way God deals with us, think about it. Before God gave the 10 Commandments to the people of Israel, He first set them free from their slavery. And then He only gives the rules as an act of love for their good and say, do you love me? I've set you free. Do you know how much I love you? Yes. Well, these are the commandments to give yourself life.
God says, do it this way. Don't do it this way. And you will experience true freedom and peace. The culture says, do what you want. Get as much freedom as you possibly can. And that is true psychological autonomy. You pastor people, you counsel people. They come to you basically in a very tragic state of life, upheaval. Are they free?
They've never been free. See, that's the problem. Never free. That God, when you come to know Christ and you come to know His power and His love, now you know freedom. If not, you're again trying to fill up the emptiness. Again, you're trying to be, well, I'll just do this to make myself feel good. Isn't it amazing when you go to do something to make yourself feel good, you got to do it again and again and again and again, and then it becomes less pleasing, so you have to do it again.
Like a drug,
and again.
habituation.
Exactly.
To a drug.
And all you do is you become addicted to something, and the addiction always kills you. It always pulls you down. When you listen to God, He says, I've come to set you free. Would you trust me? The world says, don't trust God, you trust us. But look at the outcome. You can tell a tree by its fruit. What is the ultimate fruit? Is it freedom or is it slavery? Coming to God, doing God's way, freedom.
But don't I have to experience doing it God's way before I actually truly believe it? Okay, I've done it God's way. Gosh, I feel better now. My life is going better now.
Well, and again, I think that, again, the way God deals things, He sets us free first. Once we come to this, like someone asked me, I was doing a conference once, and they raised their hand and said, Father, how do we get kids before marriage to stop having, being premaritally active with sexuality? And I say, you get them to know Jesus. And once they come to know Jesus and how much He loves them, they won't even think about offending Him or even think about doing stuff that would pull them into slavery.
When my wife converted to the Catholic Church, she said one of the biggest struggles for her was giving up all of the freedom she thought she had to give up. And what she found was, as she came closer to our Lord and His church, she truly didn't want to do those things.
Exactly.
They were not something she had to give up. They were something she didn't want as part of her life.
When you look at rules as just things to restrict you, well, then it's going to pull you down. But when you look at rules that are there to help you become more alive, and you're in love, then you're set free. Big difference.
I'm a psychologist.
No.
Well, I am.
Try to be.
Many people come to my office in terrible states of life. Some are Christians, some are not. Common theme is the more they have drifted from the way God said to do it, whether they realize it or not, the more slaves they become to the way they're living. Who's wiser? God and His church? Modern secular ideas? Look at it objectively. You'll see. For Catechism Wisdom, I'm Dr. Ray. As always, with me, guiding me along every spiritual step of the way, Father Larry Richards, my friend. Thanks, Father Larry.
Thank you, Dr. Ray.
You know what he looks like? He looks like one of my kids when they were 11 years old and they stole something out of the cookie jar. He's got that look in his face like, He's just got it. Isn't it interesting, though, for all of his effervescence, the man has a depth, an incredible depth. You know, I'm delighted to have a chance to know Father Larry. What is freedom? Is it moral freedom? Is it secular freedom? The more I can do whatever I want, the more free I am. Thoughts? Sir, and your name, sir?
Joe.
Joe, up close there, thanks.
Father Ray, or Dr. Ray?
I just jumped in status in one sentence. All these guys who have 9 years of education, I just leapfrogged them.
So, Dr. Ray, what would you say to an individual who says, I lead a good life, I know right from wrong, why do I need to do it in the name of God?
Ooh, 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 ooh. I asked that question, Joe, of a philosophy professor. He said, how can you say you're doing good when you are ignoring the ultimate good? If God exists, He is the ultimate good. And if we say, I lead a good life, I'm doing good, I would say, who defined it? If you defined it, then you could fly a plane at somebody and you would say that's good. So without actually saying, I determine what is good, if you put it, let me rephrase this. If you put this on the feet of yourself, you've basically told God, I make the rules. Interesting study done I want to share with you briefly. They asked a bunch of people, how likely is it that these folks would get to heaven? And they listed a lot of celebrities, and they ranked them. Number one, at the time, still alive, was Mother Teresa. 87% of people said Mother Teresa, very likely to go to heaven. Then they asked this, how likely are you to go to heaven? 92%. So you see, when you make your own rules, Joe, I'm a good person, I'm holier than Mother Teresa. I'm sure you've probably heard this. Spanking breeds aggressive children. It creates a might makes right mentality. It teaches people to solve problems through force. Does it do these things? Many of you have probably spotted bottoms in your day. Are you worried your kids are going to grow up to be these awful, violent, in-your-face, solve problems through might makes right? An objective, honest look at the research says that is not true. Spanking has to be judged by all discipline. How well is this working in your home, with your morals, with your child, with the values you wish to teach? Now, are there surveys out there that say children who are spanked a lot have a lot of problems? Yeah, there are. The problem is this. If I am a parent who swings first and asks questions later, if I'm a parent who is constantly swatting, what's that say about my parenting? I'm not in control here. This child's driving me crazy. My spanking is one symptom of my struggling parenting. So therefore, if you say, well, this woman spanks 4 times a week, yes, and that reflects something. It reflects her frustration. It reflects her feeling of impotence. I was on a talk show once. Expert said to me, you spank your children? Yeah. I said, some of them have got swats, lots, some less. The expert said, your children fear you then. I said, whoa. I said, I fear you. Here, tone it down, would you? I asked her, I said, how could you say this? You don't know me, you don't know my children. How could you say my children fear me? Besides, certain contexts, I want them to fear me. In terms of respect, in terms of what we say, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, awe. That's not what bothered me. I didn't care what she thought. I got home that day, my wife was watching this with my son, who was 7. She asked him, Andrew, do you fear Daddy? He said something I will never forget. He said something that to this day tears at my heart. Andrew, do you fear Daddy? No. That's what ticked me off. What do you mean? I'm 3 times your size. Some parents spank well, some parents don't. It's like all discipline. But there is no research anywhere that says spanking done by loving parents in a loving home causes all those problems. It's nice theory. Doesn't hold up to scrutiny. All right, I want to close up with your thinking rather than my thinking on spanking. Yes, ma'am, let me get you up behind me. Without my wife here, I don't even know where the microphone is. Your name?
Yes, my name is Donna.
Hi, Donna.
I was a spanker. My children...
Well, you sound like this is an encounter group.
Yes, I was.
I've been a spanker. Hi, Donna.
I've been recovering for 10 years. No. Our children are now 24, 26, and 29, all girls.
Do they still flinch when you walk by?
No, not anymore, no. But they did learn from growing up with that they would not spank their children. So I can't wait till they start having children so I can see what their technique...
What you did was kind of archaic throwback.
Exactly.
And in fact, they're going to reverse it and do it better.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So we've taught them to do one step better. But my question is, or the statement that I have is, spanking versus beating, because I think sometimes they get confused with one another. What are your thoughts on that?
You ever notice how even people who are in favor of allowing parents to spank will say things like this? Well, you know, I think spanking's okay. No, I don't think beating's okay. They qualify it constantly because we're so nervous now to talk about spanking in our culture. We have to qualify. Well, I think a slight swat on the bottom is okay. Now, I'm not talking about beating kids. We have basically infiltrated the popular mindset with the idea that we're so nervous about this thing called spanking that even parents who agree with it have to qualify. Yes, it's radically different. They're not on the same continuum. That's been the flaw of the thinking. Well, you know, it's only a short step from spanking to beating. No, it's not. It's a big step. It's not even the same thing in parenting. Well, another hour's come to a close. I have had an absolutely delightful time. Some of you have your IQ raised. I can tell that just in a short period of time, your IQ's up. Thanks to Nikaeda Griffie, who talked about adoption and why some of us could ponder this, getting us past our anxieties. Father Larry says, true freedom, liberty, is the freedom to do what is good and right, and you will be even more free. Rafe told us, I like going to the parent that's easier. Usually I get permission, or the parent says, well, do whatever your mother says. That's it. I do what your mother says. Everybody does what your mother says. Do what your mother says. You'll survive till next week. Thank you so much for joining us here on Living Right with Dr. Ray. I am Dr. Ray Guarendi. This is my lovely audience. Till next time, walk with God. Next time on Living Right with Dr. Ray, character is the presence of virtue. It is not the absence of pathology. Dr. Stan Williams will tell us how do you put morals and values into books and TV. Father Larry Richards here to talk about fatherhood. As the Catechism says, experts say being sent to your room, bad punishment. This expert says good punishment.